He didn't decide to give up on love. It wasn't a sudden choice. It was a slow death. 1,000 small cuts that no one saw. The unanswered messages, the constant tests, the feeling of never being enough, even when he gave everything. At first, he thought he was the problem. So he worked harder. He dressed better. He spoke softer. But no matter what he did, he was still invisible. And then one day, something inside him just switched off. He stopped chasing, stopped explaining, stopped proving. And that silence, the one they mistook for indifference, was actually peace. Because the modern man isn't giving up. He's waking up. Modern dating isn't about meeting someone anymore. It's about presenting someone, a version of yourself that looks flawless but feels fake. Everyone's auditioning for attention. Every photo, every caption, every "what are you up to?" is a performance. He remembers when connection was simple, when you met someone, talked for hours, and didn't need perfect lighting to feel seen. Now, everything has to be curated. You don't just talk, you market yourself. On one side, women are told they deserve the best, that there's always something better just a swipe away. On the other, men are told to keep proving, improving, upgrading, until they stop feeling human. It's not about love anymore. It's about leverage. Every conversation feels like a silent negotiation. Don't say too much. Don't seem too available. Don't show too much interest. The game rewards indifference and punishes sincerity. So the man who once spoke from the heart learns to play cold. He mirrors the energy he gets. He hides his depth behind sarcasm, because depth doesn't trend anymore. They say confidence is attractive, but only when it comes packaged with mystery, detachment, and just enough arrogance to look unbothered. So he studies the rules. He learns how to text slower, care less, detach faster. He becomes what the world rewards, and loses what made him real. They tell him to be vulnerable, yet the moment he is, they call it weakness. They tell him to lead, then accuse him of being controlling. They tell him to respect women, then mock him for not being alpha enough. The messages conflict until nothing makes sense. He's walking through a maze built by contradictions. Every path ends in guilt. If he loves deeply, he's clingy. If he protects himself, he's cold. And through it all, he starts to realize the most dangerous truth of all. It's not that he can't find love. It's that love, the way he once believed in it, barely exists here anymore. The apps, the games, the trends, they don't create connection. They create consumers. People collecting experiences, not bonds. He sees it everywhere. The subtle competition, the unspoken scoreboard. Who can care less? Who can move on faster? Who can make the other one chase longer? And the saddest part? Everyone's exhausted. But no one wants to be the first to stop playing. So the man withdraws, not out of spite, but self-preservation. He realizes he's being measured, not met, observed, not understood. And the more he tries to prove he's enough, the further that finish line moves. What used to be dating is now survival. What used to be affection is now strategy. And when strategy replaces sincerity, the outcome is inevitable. The people who feel most deeply leave first. Not because they stopped caring, but because they finally understood that real connection can't exist in a place where everyone's pretending not to care. He's not running from love. He's walking away from the performance. Because when everything becomes a show, the only honest act left is silence. There comes a point when effort stops meaning anything. He used to believe that if he worked harder, communicated better, showed more empathy, things would change. But they didn't. The more he gave, the less he received. The more open he became, the more disposable he felt. He started noticing how people only reached out when they needed something, how interest came in waves, intense one moment, gone the next. And it wasn't just dating. It was friendships, work, even family. Everything felt transactional. Every connection came with a hidden cost. Slowly, he began to disconnect. Not out of spite, but out of exhaustion. Because you can only pour from an empty cup for so long before you start resenting yourself for it. He realized that no matter how kind you are, people will still leave when it benefits them. No matter how genuine you act, they'll still question your motives. The collapse didn't happen all at once. It happened quietly, one ignored message at a time, one disappointment after another, until one day he stopped trying to explain himself. He stopped expecting people to understand. He stopped trying to be seen, because he finally understood that the world doesn't reward effort anymore. It rewards perception. You can be real and still lose to someone pretending better than you. You can love deeply and still be forgotten by someone who was never capable of the same depth. And once he saw that, really saw it, something inside him broke. But it wasn't a breakdown. It was clarity. He began to see people for who they were, not who he wished they'd be. He began to see himself not as the victim, but as someone who was finally done negotiating his worth. That's when everything around him started to feel fake. The compliments, the promises, the smiles, and maybe they were, or maybe he just wasn't willing to pretend anymore. The more honest he became with himself, the more isolated he felt. Because truth, he learned, doesn't attract crowds. It pushes them away. People don't want honesty. They want comfort. They don't want reflection. They want entertainment. He noticed how every conversation had turned into a performance. People didn't listen to understand. They listened to respond. He'd share something personal, and they'd redirect it back to themselves. He'd open up, and they'd scroll halfway through his sentences. Eventually, he stopped talking. Not out of anger, out of acceptance. Because silence, at least, didn't lie to him. That silence became his mirror. It forced him to face the truth he'd been avoiding. That he was spending his life trying to earn connection in a world that no longer values it. And the more he thought about it, the clearer it became. People don't ghost because they're busy. They ghost because it's easier than admitting they never cared. They don't leave because you failed. They leave because consistency feels boring to those addicted to novelty. That realization stung, but it also freed him, because once you understand that, you stop chasing closure. You stop replaying what you could have said differently. You stop needing explanations from people who didn't value you enough to give one. That's when the chase ended. Not with drama, not with revenge, just silence. The quiet kind that follows when a man finally realizes that peace costs less than attention. At some point, he got tired of being angry. The frustration didn't help. The overthinking didn't change anything. He realized that staying bitter only kept him tied to the same people and patterns he wanted to escape. So he started stepping back, not in a dramatic way, but quietly. He stopped explaining himself. He stopped chasing replies. He stopped trying to prove he was different. Instead, he started paying attention to how he felt around people. Was he calm? Or was he anxious? Was he being himself? Or was he performing? It was uncomfortable at first. The silence felt heavy. The distance felt personal. But after a while, he began to see that most of his connections were built on habit, not meaning. He wasn't losing real relationships. He was letting go of placeholders. He began focusing on small things he could control: his health, his money, his time. He started reading again, going for walks, fixing things around the house, simple routines that didn't depend on anyone's approval. And slowly, he began to feel something he hadn't felt in years: peace, not excitement, not validation, just stability. That's when he realized that most people aren't addicted to love. They're addicted to attention, and attention is temporary, but discipline, that stays. He stopped thinking about how to get people back and started thinking about how to never lose himself again. That's when his life started to change. He noticed how drama disappeared when he stopped reacting, how fake friends vanished when he stopped being available, how peace showed up the moment he stopped chasing chaos. He started saying no more often, not to be difficult, but to protect his time.
Oh boy, listen, I've got to go. Thank you, Victoria.
Maybe we could do lunch one day next week. You know, I'm downtown
I
on
don't
Wall
know,
Street
Victoria.
quite often
I'm at work
now.
all the
Well, what
time.
about a Saturday?
Next Saturday?
Sure.
Can't, I'm afraid. A matinee of Les Mis. Listen, I've really got to go. Christ, I'll call you.
Okay.
He stopped explaining why. The people who respected him didn't need explanations. There were days he still felt lonely, but he began to understand that loneliness isn't always a sign that something's missing. Sometimes it's a sign that you're detoxing from noise. He learned to enjoy doing things alone. A meal, a walk, even a movie. No pressure to perform, no need to impress. Just existing without expectation. That's when he realized something important. Peace isn't found in isolation, it's found in alignment. When what you think, what you say, and what you do finally match, you stop needing the world to validate it. For the first time, he wasn't trying to be seen as the good guy or the strong one. He was just being honest, even if it meant being alone. Because solitude, he learned, isn't punishment. It's recovery. The turning point wasn't a big event. It wasn't a breakdown or a new relationship. It was a decision to stop negotiating his peace with people who never earned access to it. He stopped measuring his value by how much he was needed. He started measuring it by how calm he felt when he was alone. And from that moment on, his silence stopped being weakness. It became his boundary. Healing isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It shows up slowly, in the way he wakes up earlier, breathes deeper, and starts caring about small things again. He no longer needs noise to feel alive. The quiet that once scared him now feels sacred. He starts rebuilding, piece by piece. A workout here, a journal entry there, reading instead of scrolling, creating instead of chasing. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who he was before the world told him to be someone else. For the first time, he feels peace, not because life got easier, but because his standards did. He no longer begs for attention. He guards his energy. Discipline replaces desire. Purpose replaces validation. He understands now that solitude isn't loneliness, it's alignment. It's choosing yourself in a world that profits when you don't. And the more he chooses peace, the more chaos leaves him alone. He doesn't crave to be seen anymore. He's finally seeing himself. This is what real rebirth looks like. Not fireworks, not revenge, just quiet consistency. The man who once begged to be loved now walks with the calm of someone who finally learned how to love himself.